Hey guys, today we're going to be practicing different techniques with oil pastels. The first thing that you'll need to do is make sure that you have your oil pastels with you. And second, you'll be making a worksheet that looks just like this with a plain piece of white drawing paper. So at this point, go ahead and pause the video so you can make this worksheet exactly as it appears. So the first exercise that we're going to work on is mixing two primary colors to make a secondary color. But before we do that, let's go ahead and review some color theory concepts. So here is a color wheel. A color wheel organizes the colors so they're easy to see and easy to match up. And it also gives you kind of an idea of what colors to work with. So the squares are the primary colors, and then the secondary colors are the circles in between them. I chose two primary colors, the blue and the red, and when you mix them together, it makes a violet or purple. So when you mix a yellow and a blue, it makes a green, and then when you mix red and blue, it makes purple. Then when you mix yellow and red, it makes orange. And then when you mix two, a primary and secondary, it makes an intermediate color. But for this particular assignment, for this first step, we're going to go ahead and use two primary colors to mix a secondary color. So first you'll want to fill in that box and make sure that you're putting medium to hard pressure, meaning that you're covering the whole box, adding color to that whole area, and making sure that you're pressing hard so you don't see hardly any white showing through of the paper. Then you'll be doing the same thing to the other side. While you're coloring with your oil pastels, make sure that you take a look at the tip that you're coloring with, and if it's a little bit dirty, if they're used, make sure that you clean them off on a piece of paper or a piece of tissue paper. So now we're going to go ahead and mix the primary colors to make the secondary color. So what you'll want to do is you'll choose one color and start blending it over into the middle box. Start coloring it in a way where the white is showing through the paper. And then you're grabbing your other primary color and coloring on top of that first color. That way, when you start putting pressure and you're putting friction to the paper, the movement of you going back and forth with the oil pastel is actually combining those colors together. If you want to, you could use something like a tissue paper or your finger or a Q-tip to mix these two colors together so they look more like a secondary color. You can keep on going over them in layers of color with a medium valley or a medium pressure to give it that tone of color that you want it. If you want it to be more of a cool tone secondary or a warm tone secondary, depending on the color that you add. As long as it looks like there's a secondary color in that middle box, you're good to go for that step. Alright, so in the second box, we're going to be practicing how to make a tint. Box number 1 says white plus color, and box number 2 says white plus color. So you're going to be picking up a color, whichever color you like, and you're going to be picking up a white oil pastel. Once you get your oil pastel, if it needs to be cleaned, just use a tissue paper to kind of clean it off. The oil pastels seem to be sticky, and if they're next to another color, they'll end up getting a little bit of those flakes, those color flakes, onto each other. So in the first box, what I would like for you to do is color in the box with a medium pressure layer of oil pastel. And you're going to be doing that to the second box as well. Then you're going to grab your color, and in the first box with medium pressure, you're going to be going over it with the oil pastel color that you chose. And then you're going to be blending that out with your blending tool, whether it be a piece of tissue paper or your finger or a Q-tip. That way it is blended. The goal here is to make box number 1 the darker box and box number 2 the lighter box. So that's why we're adding several layers. So we already added a layer of white oil pastel to the first box or the second box. And then we're going over it with oil pastel again. And then on top of the red, we're adding another layer of white to make it even lighter. Once you've colored that box with the third layer of white oil pastel, you can use whatever tool of your choosing to blend it out together, whether it be a Q-tip or a piece of tissue paper or your fingers. I would say use a piece of tissue paper, it's less messy. So step number 3 is where we're creating a shade, the opposite of a tint. So in box number 1, you're doing black plus a color, and then box number 2, you're doing black plus a color. So choose any color you want, and then grab your black oil pastel. And just like in the tinting step, you're going to go ahead and grab the black oil pastel and go over it with medium pressure. Medium meaning that you still see some of the white paper showing through. Make sure that you fill in the box with the black oil pastel. And then you're going to go over it with the color of your choosing to make a shade of that color, meaning a darker shade of your color by adding black to it. Make sure that you take your time and fill in the box and make sure that it looks nice, keeping in mind craftsmanship. For the second box, you're adding a layer of black to it, just like the first box, medium pressure, and making sure that you're filling it in nice, taking your time and coloring. And then going over it with your color of choice with medium pressure. And then filling it in with another layer of black to make the second box even darker than the first box. That's what I'll be looking for. So for step number 4, you're going to be creating a value scale. Remember that value is the difference between lightness and darkness. And so you're going to choose whatever sort of oil pastel color you'd like, and you're going to show the difference between how it looks like when it's super dark versus how it looks like when it's very light. And you're going to make a gradual transition from each. Now, we recently learned how to do this with color pencils, so it's sort of the same premise with oil pastels. You're going to press really, really hard with the oil pastel and then gradually lighten up the pressure, and you'll be seeing more white show through of the paper. Make sure that when you're doing this step to take your time and fill in the box from top to bottom, and then you can use whatever sort of blending tool you want, whether it be your finger or your color pencil, or your Q-tip or your tissue paper to blend it out. And number 5, you're going to be blending 2 colors together. Any 2 colors of your choosing, preferably 2 that would blend together. So you could choose a primary and a secondary to make a tertiary color. And so that's what I chose here. It'll make your blending life a lot easier. 2 colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, or 3 colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, are analogous and they blend a lot better together. So I chose blue and purple, and I did almost the same exact thing as a color wheel, where I started out really, really dark and I started to kind of fade the pressure over once I got into the center, making sure I'm taking my time and coloring. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side, where you're grabbing your oil pastel and then pressing hard and then lightening up the pressure as you work your way across. Now make sure that you keep your oil pastels handy, because you're actually going to go back and forth with each of them and using them as your blending tools. Making sure to go back and forth between the colors and making sure that you're blending them back and forth and creating those layers of oil pastel, even more than I'm showing here, really makes a more dynamic blending. Like, you could show absolutely no white and it'll make the blending look a lot better. Now, once you're completely finished, I would like for you to make sure that you're submitting an image of this back to canvas for a grade. Remember that you're practicing this, so you make sure you understand the concepts when we're going to be creating our artwork. Thanks for watching.